He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
This is The Alex Marlow Show. Thanks for joining me today. We got some major stories today. There's like 6 or 8 things that really could be the top line news for us today. Tons of economic things breaking. We've got updates on perhaps peace breaking out in Eastern Europe. We've got a lot of chaos in the United States, upheaval in the Democrat Party to take a look at. But I'm going to start where you all knew I would start, which is the Greenland elections. This is the top Greenland elections podcast. I bring this up, of course, because we're keeping an eye on the new territory Trump wants. And, you know, the more I think about it, the more I don't think we're actually going to get Canada to become the 51st state or even the 52nd state, which I was hoping for. But Greenland, on the other hand, there's a lot of strategic importance there because of China's encroachment into the Arctic. And it just, as people have been pointing out, the Greenland's closer to New York than it is to Copenhagen. So it is one of these things where the election has become dominated by U.S. political discussions. There's have sort of a left-right split in the country, but one thing that's noteworthy in Greenland is they have a lot of debate over anti-independence versus pro-independence. It's not really framed as a dichotomy between do you want to stay with Denmark or do you want to go to the United States. It's more about whether or not you want to be free or you want to be part of Denmark for sure. So all 4 of these parties, there's 4 major parties. At this point, the major parties are all pretty much pro-independence. They don't like Denmark. They're over Denmark. And I'm sure Trump had this in the back of his mind when he started his overtures towards Greenland. So now the election results are in from last night. The top 2 parties are right-of-center parties. Now, they're right-of-center by Greenland standards. So the country all leans left. It's very small. Not that many people vote in these things. 58,000 people, I think, total, which is, it's like a small city in the United States in terms of population. But all these parties are now pretty much pro-independence. And the 2 of the top 4 parties that are more right-leaning were the ones that had the most votes. These are people who just do not have any doubt that Trump could be helpful to them. These 2 groups, the top party, we're at least willing to work constructively with America. But the second party is a party called the Nalarak, is pro-American, obviously pro-American, and is very much inclined to start teaming up with the United States and very excited to get security guarantees from us and other economic benefits that could come from a partnership with the U.S. So all that's pretty exciting. It seems like that the Greenland elections, which is all this is sort of upsets, this is all new parties coming into power who are pro-American and are not pro-Denmark, which certainly means that I think these discussions are going to continue. I think we're going to see a lot more discussion of whether or not Greenland will ultimately become absorbed by the United States in some way. So explicitly pro-American leaders winning out and no one getting any momentum who would prefer Denmark over the United States. So that's real. The Canada stuff, I think, was more designed for leverage in terms of economic debates. But Greenland, keep that in mind that could be a very real thing, not a fake thing from Trump, not just some sort of a troll. So that's a big deal. All right. Also in the economy, this is really, really big. You guys saw yesterday, if you listened to yesterday's show, you would have seen me be pretty prescient. I got to say, you got to pat yourself on the back. There's a lot of competition in this podcast space. But I had told you that when Doug Ford in Ontario says we're going to cut off American energy, and Trump says the tariff just got 10 feet higher or 25% higher, however you want to interpret it, Ford takes off the restrictions on the energy right away, and Trump scores another victory. So Ontario backed down on their electricity charges for Americans. And it just reminds you that you cannot negotiate with Trump with hardball. You've got to come cooperate with him. But him announcing 50% steel and aluminum tariffs, warning that there are more to come, and immediately they caved in Ontario. It's also noteworthy that Doug Ford kind of went rogue here. This wasn't in deep coordination with the rest of Canada. This was just something that he was doing on his own in Ontario. And then Trump just comes over the top of him and says, we're just going to tariff the whole country more, and we're going to make you a pariah. And he backs off right away. So it's really interesting because I didn't see quite as much, and maybe I just wasn't online enough yesterday, thank God, if that was the case. But I didn't see quite as much of the left immediately doubting that what Trump was doing was going to work. Because whenever they've done that in the past, for example, with Colombia, recall that when they stopped taking deportation flights, and Trump said, "Boom, we're throwing a tariff on you," and the entire left said, "Ooh, Trump's going to get owned in a trade war," and then immediately they backed down. It was instantaneous. They backed down, and now they've seen this playbook before. It's working, and let's see if any other countries try it. But this is a really nice development that Trump's tariff leverage is already showing benefits for the United States, and the people see it. A CNN poll showed a surge in presidential approval under Trump on the economy, specifically on the economy, which even our own John Carney was somewhat surprised at this number because it's a very high number that we saw a CNN poll released Wednesday. Biden had 33% of Americans saying that they approved of his handling of the economy, and 67% didn't approve. Trump's got a 44% approval rating, so he's already up 11 points over Biden. And it's just a huge surge considering all of the turmoil that we're still facing. Stock market, a very bad week. Trump's trying these new tariffs. There's a lot of debt talk, which is very discouraging and distracting, and it does make you feel very fearful of things. We're just seeing prices of energy and gas tick down, and it's already registering with people that Trump is feeling he's making us feel more comforted than a Biden presidency would have made us feel. U.S. consumers have got inflation relief as consumer prices are rising less than expected. So inflation went down big. This is the Consumer Price Index, one of the key inflation data trackers that we look at Breitbart News, and everyone in the media does as well. The February numbers, they rose at their slowest pace since last summer, 2.8% in the 12 months through February, the Labor Department reported on Wednesday morning. So this is a good number. This is a much lower than what people thought, and it shows that inflation is coming down at a quick clip, quicker clip than even the best case scenario prognosticators are talking about. Now, Trump's got to move fast in this regard. We really got to have this stuff under control. We got to have it under control fast. But it does bode well when we're seeing these sorts of indicators that people are giving Trump they're giving him leeway. They have faith in him. They trust him. They're seeing his tariffs work as a negotiating tactic. And when you start seeing inflation come down, that is a very good sign that things could potentially, if not get cheaper for Americans, they could at least not get more expensive at a rapid rate as they did under Biden. And as a reminder, as we'll remind you as often as we can, egg prices are now below what they were when Trump took office. So that whole egg price talking point, that was the obsession of the MSNBC crowd for the first 6 weeks of the presidency, is now not related. All right. The House passed the CR that we talked about yesterday on the Scott Perry Show. I told you that interview, really good interview, I listened back to it and I got a lot out of it that I missed even while I was conducting the interview, which is really interesting. It's a funny thing. It's a brain teaser to do these sorts of things. To do these interviews, because you're half focused on the interesting content that's coming out of your guest's mouth, but also you got to think about your next question and what you got to accomplish. And you really do find there's some really great tidbits in those things. So I always recommend a close listen. I'm not bringing any guests on the show for you that don't have a ton to say. And the House did pass the CR. Only Thomas Massie voted against it. I got some negative tweets and emails on my support of the CR. I admire you guys. You guys are very hardcore on this stuff, that your guys are with Massie, even though, as we learned, Republicans are even frustrated that there aren't many earmarks in this thing. It's got tons of border enforcement. It funds Doge. It cuts the government. First time ever. We haven't done that in decades, where we've actually cut the government. And we're going to have to do this all again in 6 months. This only is really a stopgap so that we can have some basic functionality of Doge and border enforcement, et cetera. And still, a lot of you guys just want to shut down the government over this, which that means it's shutting down Trump's government. So you guys are really hardcore if you're in that group. But look, I get it. I get having your principles, but this seemed like a good one, and it passed easily, and now heading towards the Senate, and we'll see what it does with the Senate. But pretty much everything that we covered with Perry on the interview yesterday, that did all seem to come true. So the left is completely tied up in knots on this stuff. They don't know what to do with Trump. They don't know what to do with Doge. They don't know what to do with Musk. And so they've taken to actual acts of terrorism. We're seeing Teslas being torched all across the country. We're seeing them targeted with graffiti. There's an unbelievable story where a masked man vandalizing a Tesla charging station in North Charleston, South Carolina, attempting to burn down the Molotov cocktail, set himself on fire in the process. And the maniac had spray painted "Long Live Ukraine" next to a vulgar message about President Trump. So these people are nuts. Long live Ukraine guy burns himself down trying to commit acts of vandalism. It is remarkable that the crowd who has insisted that climate change is an existential threat, which means it's going to wipe us all out. We will all die due to climate change. The number one guy in world history in terms of manufacturing electric vehicles, which they had told us was the number one thing we have to do to stop climate change, just because he's trying to cut waste, fraud, and abuse in our government, is now so hated by them, they want to burn down all of his cars and his infrastructure and make it so that people are, his brand is toxified so that people won't buy his electric cars, which are infinitely more green, so to speak, than any gas-guzzling truck that people might get instead. So just note how fickle they are. Isn't this a tell that gives away everything? The same way when you see the real estate prices in Malibu go up and the real estate prices of Martha's Vineyard go up, it makes you think they don't really believe their own hype on the climate change front. Because why would you be buying coastal real estate if you're on the left, if you really thought the sea levels were going to rise rapidly? So that they don't really believe it. But this shows they don't really believe that climate change is an existential threat if they want to destroy Elon Musk's green car company. Because if it's existential, it means we're all dead if people like Musk don't succeed. So you can disagree with him on his cutting of the budget or disagree with his tactics or his antics or his wardrobe or whatever, or his baby mamas. You can have all those disagreements with Musk. But ultimately, if you're a green person, you have to like the Teslas, right? So really interesting that they're targeting the Teslas of all things. It is, I guess, Musk's most powerful brand. And maybe they feel like if they punish him enough, then he'll leave and do something else.
I always get nervous when it rains because that cuts into my grilling time. So yesterday, though, I did whip out the Solaire infrared grill and I made some hamburgers. They were unbelievable. It's the first time I've done the burgers. I've done the steaks, I've done the chickens. But since the good people at besthotgrill.com sent me my Solaire infrared grill, I had not tried the burgers. I got a great burger recipe. I got the onions in the caramelization zone, and I do the jalapenos. So that's it. That's the move. And I don't overdo it on the cheese. Always cheddar. I don't like American. I don't understand it when you guys go for the American. A lot of people do. A lot of smart people do. But I don't get it. I'm a cheddar guy through and through. And it was the first time I'd done the burgers on the Solaire infrared grill, and it was absolutely perfect. So I've got an issue. I don't like a well-done burger, but I also don't like to make my family sick. So I end up erring on the side of the overdone burger sometimes at home. And I try to make up for it with, better toppings, better flavors, better seasoning. But I was able to nail it, completely nailed it. Perfect medium in the middle, nice sear on the outside. And it's all because I got the hottest grill in the market. Besthotgrill.com, Solaire infrared grills.
All right, so let me give you a sense of how much of a mess the left is that now they are so pathological in their hatred of Musk, and they're so unwilling to understand that they should have done some of this stuff themselves, just cutting waste in government, that they are now basically justifying acts of terrorism and vandalism at least, but kind of terrorism, what's going on against Musk and his companies and his cars and the people who own these things, who are victims in all this, innocent bystanders. They're probably liberals in a lot of cases. They're electric cars. So, but check out, this is Seth Moulton, who's supposed to be one of the moderates of the Democrat Party who never votes properly ever. So he's just like the rest of them, but he presents himself as a moderate. Here he is on CNN talking about some of this stuff.
We're attacking Teslas or dealerships, going beyond vandalism, that could be an act of domestic terrorism. But I do want to ask about this as resistance. Is this what resistance should look like?
So Trump thinks that if you try to kill cops to overthrow the government and change an election, that's not domestic terrorism, but somehow having a protest in front of a Tesla dealership is.
So how does he workshop these talking points? You know what I got to do? I just set up a consultancy where I work with these Democrats on talking points. First of all, this is a logical fallacy. It's a non sequitur. It's a January the 6th has nothing to do with people torching Teslas today. Do we all agree with that? Would Seth Moulton acknowledge that if I confronted him with it and said, hey, Seth, they're unrelated, right? So, and second of all, his January the 6th history is incorrect. It was no one targeted cops to kill cops. There was no cops were murdered at January the 6th. just in case any of you cared to know the truth and not just the talking points. And how long are we going to do this January the 6th talk? You guys did nonstop January the 6th all throughout 2024, and then you guys lost. So he's basically justifying terrorism here because he will not condemn the terrorists. He doesn't come out and say, he doesn't even do the pro forma, I condemn all acts of political violence, which he should do. And he doesn't do that.
The bottom line with Trump is freedom and liberties belong to people who agree with him, and that's it. That's his view of America. That's not a view that people who believe in our Constitution share.
Congress.
Okay. All right. It's just they have nothing. They still have nothing. But we'll keep an eye on them. I love to play these clips because you guys see how little they've got. Is there anything in there that would persuade a voter to get involved who is otherwise not involved, or for someone who was on the fence, bring them around? Oh, well, he just doesn't like the Constitution. And he doesn't believe in the basic stuff that all good people believe because he's a bad guy. And he has an orange spray tan. His ties are very long. So it's just nothing. Absolutely nothing. All right. So meanwhile, Trump is test driving Teslas at the White House. We got some footage of this. This is a day or two old, but it's still fun to play. So let's play it.
Oh, that's beautiful. Wow. That's beautiful. This is a different panel than I've had. Everything's computer. That's beautiful. Wow.
Everything's computer. Oh, that's beautiful. I didn't know we had that, Misty. Oh, that's so fun. I hadn't played this before. You guys can see, sometimes I just trust Misty and I'll just pull the clip right in, won't preview it ever. Oh, that was gorgeous. All-time classic. All right, we gotta do that again. If you missed this one, the audio, the video helps, but even you audio people, you just listen closely for our beautiful president.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. This is a different panel than I've had. Everything's computer.
Everything's computer. Now, if any of you have been in a Tesla, there are no buttons. I don't think there are any buttons in the whole car. Maybe there's one somewhere, but that's their whole thing. So it's all basically a huge iPad. Tesla is an amazing piece of technology. Those of you who are car purists and like combustion engine and like the mechanics that have gone into traditional suspensions and things like that, it's not really for you. But people who are very high-tech people who just like a car that is clean and slick and goes fast if it's accelerating in a direct straight line, it's very impressive work of machinery in that way. But it does feel like a piece of high-tech that is on wheels. And that's why Trump coming in, he doesn't see any buttons. He doesn't see any switches. All it is a big iPad. And so that's what he's reacting to. But it's still, that quote is priceless. Everything's computer. He's just got it, man. It's just incredible television. TV gold right there. Let's play a little bit more of this.
Yeah, it's just a brake and an accelerator.
I don't want to.
You give Secret Service a heart attack.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Can you start it?
Should I? I'll
Skip ahead a little bit. So Musk is out there and he's got all these Teslas for Trump to drive. Trump is apparently going to buy a Tesla just to support Musk, but it's really an ad. It's a big ad to, if you like Musk, support Tesla. And Musk is in a very interesting spot, is that he's volunteered to help try to use his technological capabilities, his general brain power, his ambition, to try to help us identify fraud and waste in the government and cut it, and some of his capabilities. And it seems like he's doing a great job, to be honest with you. I love all the Doge stuff, and I do think it's a historic opportunity. And he's really seizing the moment and going for it, which I like. I'm always skeptical of a lot of things he does. We reported Breitbart News that Chinese investors are secretly funneling money into his companies. So we always have to be on the lookout for this. Lucas Nolan writes for us that Chinese asset managers funneling tens of millions of dollars into Musk private companies like SpaceX, Neuralink, and XAI using special purpose vehicles to shield investor identities, according to financiers involved in the deals. So look, we always have to have an eye on Musk and China. He's praised China. He's talked about China's superiority to America, but he does seem to be willing to change and to evolve. And the fact that he, world's richest man, is trying to identify ways to save us money. And he's being accused by half the country of stealing. and being an oligarch and being some sort of unappointed president, shadow president. All of that is he's taking a lot of heat. He's taking a lot of heat. And Trump is trying to show him a solid by saying get a Tesla. Now, I can't say get a Tesla because I'm with original Trump. But I'll tell you, this is what's most noteworthy to me here. I've spoken to Trump numerous times about electric cars on a personal level. He does not like them. And he's talked about how they don't go very far. The charges don't last very long. He's not an electric car guy. So for Trump to do a gesture like this really does show the level of appreciation he has for what Musk is doing. And he doesn't see Musk as a threat. He sees Musk as a very important partner here. And this is very clear because sometimes with the deal stuff with Trump, it's hard to know exactly where he's at. But this is pretty clear to me. He knows where he's at here. If he's at the White House doing basically a Tesla ad, he really does think what Musk is doing is important and it's working. And that's very fascinating to watch. So good stuff. And in the meantime, the left will continue to justify terrorism against him, all because they don't want to have anything cut. They don't want to have anything cut. All right. This is where, again, here's another one, just checking how the left is doing. This is Elissa Slotkin, who is not Elise Stefanik. I remind myself that, but Elissa Slotkin, who gave that riveting State of the Union response. Here's her on The View. Here's how she's talking about Republicans these days.
Right. I think there's a feeling in the country. Yeah. I mean, I often say this, we're about to turn 250 years old, right? We're still pretty young for a country. These are our our angry teenage years, right? We are going through this push and pull where we're happy, we're sad, we want this, we want that. And what do you do when you have a teenager who's threatening themselves and others? You just try to get them through this period alive so that their brain can fully form and you can come back to kind of what
Are
a
you
country.
Talking about Trump?
No, I'm talking about our country. We're pendulum swinging. We're pendulum swinging. And so for me, I think I don't think there's a single American who feels like this is normal.
Okay, so we're all teenagers now. We're dumb. Our brains aren't formed. We're prone to bouts of emotion. And she's not talking about themselves. She won't say it exactly because she knows that makes the soundbite even more compelling. But she's talking about us. She's talking about the Trump supporters. What's interesting to me is that I've been in this sort of MAGA movement, America First movement, since it feels like 2012, 2013. These ideas really started to percolate. That the problem was the Republican establishment who wouldn't stand up to Democrats. The problem was the open border. The problem was we got rolled on NAFTA. The problem was all these wars that we were sold as Republicans were all bogus. When we started to internalize, particularly at Breitbart, people like Laura Ingraham, Dr. Michael Savage, the Jeff Sessions' office and the Senate, there were a few of us who were kind of kicking around these ideas. And we were thinking that Ann Coulter, of course, that we had to move in a different direction. We had to move in a different direction than where the Republicans are at. This is an intellectual movement. This is a movement that's based off of fundamental ideas. Now, we've got all of a sudden a great grassroots energy that's really driving things, a lot of great cultural sensibilities that are playing into the MAGA movement at this moment. But this is not a teenager type situation. We're not immature. I don't even need to accept her premise. It's such a stupid premise. But I am, for the sake of pointing out to people, that there is a deep intellectual background to Trump's America First conservatism. Now, he presents at a more of a cultural level, more of a visceral level, a level that he's trying to relate to normal people. And as do most of, I think, the most popular spokespeople for the movement. But there's a huge intellectual backbone. I mean, I would just love to see a J.D. Vance respond to someone like that, someone who's internalized these ideas at such a deep level. But saying that we're in our angry teenage years and our brains aren't fully formed, no, your brain's not fully formed. It never was. Probably because you got educated through the United States public school system, I'm guessing, which is going to have a shakeup here. The Department of Education has slashed half of its workforce in an effort to streamline bloated bureaucracy. So we were told as of today, I think about half of the Department of Education is gone and it's going to go away almost entirely. I'm still rooting for my preferred scenario, which is where there is exactly one person, a four-spirit furry with purple hair. So we don't have to go through the trouble of having Congress actually cancel the Department of Education. And then if anything goes wrong, we can always blame the four-spirit furry who is not going to be competent enough to rebuild the department. So that's my take. That's how you do it. So, but the Department of Education is going away, and this is just big. It's just big because it's shocking to see us actually do stuff. So often we would win elections and people would have a very plausible case that there's only a dime's worth of difference between Republicans and Democrats. This was a chapter in, I think it was The 10 Things You Can't Say in America by my friend Larry Elder. If not, it was his second book. But anyway, Larry Elder wrote about this when he was in his libertarian mode. This is decades ago, where he was an actual libertarian. And he would write, the Republicans and Democrats, there's just not much of a difference. Well, how about now? We're cutting the Department of Education. Are you saying there's not much of a difference? So great.
All right, market's down big again today. And whenever the market goes down big, you guys know what I do. I go over and I check the price of gold, and the price of gold is flat. The price of silver also flat and slightly up. Gold is up over the last 30 days. It's up big over the last 6 months. It's up huge over the last year. And if you look at a longer window, let's say 20 years, then it is absolutely staggering the amount of gains you get with gold. The world is an extremely chaotic place. We have changing administrations. We've got obstructionist Democrats who don't want common sense to go through. Trump is doing his absolute best to try to get this economy roaring back, but he cannot do everything all on his own. I will tell you, the safest, smartest, easiest way to protect your wealth by far is to have precious metals. If you're holding precious metals, you are amply diversified and protected and safe. I have a wonderful partner in the gold space. That is Priority Gold. You go to PriorityGold.com or you text FREEDOM to 24999. They will give you that free wealth preservation guide, and you're going to understand why this is such a no-brainer, how you can protect your savings through all this chaos with gold IRAs. They got so many different options for you. They have a page where you can learn all sorts of different ways you can get invested in gold. It is absolutely silly if you're not doing that. Go to PriorityGold.com or text 24999, text FREEDOM to 24999 today. Get that free wealth preservation guide. Check it out. You will not regret it. Guarantee it.
Yeah, and I'm just reminded how there's billions that is going to go towards Trump's border enforcement in the CR. So all of you voted for Trump and are not happy with the CR, just know that if you do not back it, you are not backing billions for border enforcement. So you're putting that on the fence to try to negotiate for some better deal, but I don't know what better deal you're going to be negotiating for, because you got to keep the entirety of the Republican coalition together, because no Democrats crossed the aisle. Only one voted for the CR, only one Democrat. So it is time. We are cracking down on the border. We are cutting the Department of Education. We are trying to bring some sanity back to the discussion at a cultural level as well. A rapper called Lil Yachty, it's called Black Lives Matter, a scam. Now, Missy, I should have told you to get the Lil Yachty walkout video. You guys have all seen this. Any of you who have a computer, Lil Yachty is known for having I think they call it the hardest walkout video of all time. This is where he comes out to do a concert of some sort, and he walks out from backstage, and it's the coolest thing that you've ever seen in your life. And you don't have to be some sort of a rap fan to appreciate it. It's very cool. And it's been turned into a billion different memes. And this is a very culturally relevant guy. I don't know any of his songs or anything like that, but it is a big deal that Lil Yachty saying Black Lives Matter was a scam, pointing out, as I've been pointing out, that a lot of Black Lives Matter, the money went not just to the Black Lives Matter organizers, but to white leftists who've been organizing against conservatism and the American establishments, the American people for decades. Those are the type of people who benefited most greatly from Black Lives Matter and ended up hurting Black communities, because it ended up leading to higher crimes in those communities. So, but I will tell you, we had a big dispute at the Breitbart Morning editorial call that might lead to, well, I won't say a firing, but definitely Jerome Hudson, our entertainment editor, had to go to the woodshed today, because he had assumed that the other members of our editorial call had not heard of Lil Yachty. And Jerome is a POC, and he had assumed that the rest of us at Breitbart News, many of us are Caucasian, some of us are from other diverse backgrounds, but to assume that we did not know who Lil Yachty was, I took as a racial statement. And he immediately went to the woodshed. And he's probably listening to the show. He is an Alex Marlow Show fan and supporter. So, Jerome, you're getting a public call out today, because how dare you suggest that I didn't know who Lil Yachty was? I don't live under a rock. I edit an important news site. Not to mention all the other Caucasians on the call. So I'm sure most of them. Though Bradley J., who was our congressional correspondent, did reach out and said he had no idea who Lil Yachty was. And so Bradley is Jerome's back. That's a big deal. Misty, you gotta be chuckling this a little bit. I mean, come on. Misty keeps an eye on rap. She's my unofficial rap. She keeps an eye on the rap beat for me on the show. But we're pulling off rappers left and right in the MAGA movement. We dig it. So other cultural stuff that's big. Trump administration's cut funding to Maine universities after state defies a trans ban. This is where negotiating with Trump is becoming very difficult for people. He is just going to beat you every single time. He wants an undefeated record. Trump administration ordered the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the USDA, to pause federal funds to the University of Maine over the state's refusal to protect women's sports. I'm reading from a Paul Bois article at Breitbart. The USMS holds a network of 8 public schools, and they have the largest educational enterprise in the state, 30,000 students in it. And they will not ban men from women's sports. Again, as I've said, the leftist dream is they will not be happy until every single podium spot for a women's track or swimming event goes to a man. That is their ultimate goal. So that is where they want as many trans as possible. They want the trans to compete against the women. And so the trans are going to win. So that's what they want. So and Trump just saying, no, you're not getting we're not budging at all. Racking up victories one after the next after the next. Democrat Jeanne Shaheen from the great state of New Hampshire is not going to seek re-election. Doesn't want the headache. I mean, how old is Jeanne Shaheen? You know, I got to look this stuff up before the show. We do a lot of show prep, but I got to admit, sometimes I'm doing so much editorial that I feel like I'm just going to know everything I need to talk about on the show. It's a bit of an arrogance to me. I wouldn't say arrogance. I'd say confidence. Jeanne Shaheen, how old is she? She is 78, so she's getting up there. But hey, that's young for a senator. What's the average age in the Senate now? 90, 95? So she's moving on. And you got to think that this is because of the political climate. It's just too much of a headache to try to run for re-election here. Democrats have no brand. They have no arguments. They have no charismatic people. All of their memes are beyond cringe. They have no one who's going to bring people back at this time. There's just no one who's saying anything remotely inspiring. And all they can do is hope that Trump messes up, which means you have to root against the country. You have to root for the terrorists. You have to root for the people who want to destroy Western civilization. So here's what they got. They got Rosie O'Donnell is moving to Ireland. That's the most fun story of the day. So they've lost Rosie. This came up in coincidentally, Trump is meeting with the Irish. Is it prime minister? It's prime minister, or is it president? Anyway, Trump and Vance were in the Oval Office with the leader of Ireland today, and Rosie came up. We got footage. Let's play it in the Alex Marlow Show. Here it is.
Ireland is known for very happy, fun-loving people. Great attitude. Many in this room right now that I've met. Why in the world would you let Rosie O'Donnell move to Ireland? I think she's going to lower your happiness level.
That's true. Thank you. I like that question. Do you know you have Rosie O'Donnell? Do you know who she is? Do you know who she is?
Yeah.
You better off not. You're better off not knowing.
Yeah, you don't want to know who Rosie is. You don't want to know what it's all about. Other international news, aside from Rosie leaving America, which again, it just proves all of our points. We love it. We love to see it. Is Trump is about to bring peace to Eastern Europe. We hope. We don't know for sure. The Ukraine is apparently good with some peace terms that Trump's come up with, but the Kremlin says it needs more detail from a U.S.-led effort to create a ceasefire. Now, ceasefires don't typically end wars. I got to admit, kind of the truth. Sometimes they're just a way of prolonging a negotiation. So we're ways off still, but I have a prediction that Trump is going to afford something. Trump wants to. I think both sides are weak enough that we should be able to we should be able to get somewhere, go somewhere productive with this. We've got J.D. Vance talking about the Ukraine ceasefire. I got a clip here. Let's play this.
Well, we've got some conversations that are happening on the phone and in person with some of our representatives over the next couple of days. As the president said, we think that we're in a very good place where the Ukrainians have agreed to a ceasefire, and we're now going to see whether we can get the Russians to agree to a ceasefire too. And we'll certainly have news on that when we find out that news.
Yeah, so just setting the stage, we're hopefully moving on from this war. We want to go fast. We want to get there. I think we can get there. It's going to take some effort, but it does feel like it's still front and center. And just note that Zelensky messing all that up means that he's going to have to come back and maybe broker the whole piece, because he's got to be very nervous that he is not going to be able to maintain his foothold on power in Ukraine unless he figures out some way to cooperate with Trump, because we have not given Ukraine $1 yet, and that's probably going to stay that way unless they were able to extract some sort of bargain from us which sees the war come to an end. And even then, who knows? All right, other stuff that's going on. Oh, yeah, so Trump's supposed to speak to Putin later in the week. So, of course, we'll update you on that. This is exclusive from Lee Zeldin, the EPA administrator. He's moved to clear a massive Biden-era agency backlog to improve air quality faster. So this is so great. So this is where conservatives, we talked about this when Administrator Zeldin was on the broadcast. We talked about how it's conservatives who can be the real conservationists. And it's not just about environmentalism. Environmentalism is a hoax to extract money from taxpayers to fund green nonsense. That's what it's been. That's the reality. So what we can do is actually do more to conserve the environment, which we all love, but like we tend to use it more. We like to have more space. We are the people who tend to gravitate towards rural communities more often. We're the ones who like to hunt. We're the ones who like to farm. So wouldn't we like it if the environment was better? Of course. So he's trying to return to the core mission of the EPA as opposed to ideological pursuits of the Biden administration by announcing he's going to clear hundreds of backlog cases that have been held up by some sort of clean air regulations, which he thinks will actually end up improving air regulations faster. Here's the quote. The Biden administration's focus on ideological pursuits has said the agency's core mission and statutory duties result in delay in air quality improvement. With more than 140 million Americans living in non-attainment areas around the country, cooperative federalism and clearing out the state implementation plan backlog will make significant strides to improving the air we breathe. So he's basically saying we're clearing out federal criteria to do certain things in order to allow for the states to operate in a more efficient way. So this is great, and it's another positive that is going to power America's ability to clean up much of our environment while cutting red tape and encouraging new industry. So all this is great, low-hanging fruit, and more detail for you at Breitbart News. This is one that's not happening in America, but I do think that this does paint a really important picture of the green movement at this moment. The Amazon forest, or parts of the Amazon forest, has been felled to build a road for a climate summit. So we're cutting down the rainforest to build a new 4-lane highway for the COP30 climate summit in the Brazilian city of Belém. So this is supposed to ease traffic because there's about 50,000 people who are not going to be on Zoom. They're not going to be on Skype. They're not going to be on Riverside, which is what we use for this show. They're going to be all got to go to the Brazilian Amazon, and there's not enough roads to get in and out. So they got to build a new road. None of that is efficient. You know what is efficient? You just talk on the internet. Once they start doing the climate summits instead of in exotic vacation destinations, once they start doing them over Zoom, then I will start taking them seriously, but they can't do it. Another victory to announce for all of you. Japan beer maker Asahi looks to invest more in the United States as President Trump wields tariffs. It's just such a remarkable thing that there's just even a small amount of tariff. I talked about this when it comes to the alcohol production, where India had tariffs of 150% on American whiskey or American spirits. And they dropped that to 100%, which just means we're going to have so much more access to that market. And they had huge levels of tariffs going the other direction. So we tariff them very little, if at all. They tariff us at a huge level. They drop a tariff from a monster number, 150%, to a big number, still 100%, which is high. But even that is going to open up huge levels of being able to generate our economic engine, our economic engine here in the United States. And so you don't have to do everything at once. It doesn't have to be you're erasing X, Y, or Z, or you're sending every other tariff to 1 million. No, you make these moves and they start a negotiation that could lead to a productive way. So the specter of increased tariffs means that people are not going to gamble on building new plants and facilities in countries that are not America, basically. They're going to start building here. So Japan beer maker Asahi looking to invest more in the U.S. Company plans to boost production, according to the Wall Street Journal, of their super dry beer at a plant in Wisconsin. So Wisconsin, a big beer area, I think anyway, a big craft brew scene. So, and now we're going to be getting the Japanese beer there as well. All right. I haven't done email in a while. Let's do some email. Let's see. What do we got here? Dave Bowen sends me just a picture of him drinking out of his Breitbart Fight Club glass, his highball glass. He's got a cinnamon stick in there. That's nice. It's the cinnamon garnish. Did you flame the cinnamon there, Dave? Because that's always a nice trick. The flame cinnamon is nice. You'd also shave a little cinnamon on top. That's really nice too. I don't know. He's drinking. It looks good. But Breitbart Fight Club, yes, I do. I've been known to have a pop out of the Breitbart Fight Club Rocks class. Our Fight Clubs are premium membership. If you haven't joined, you get much more of my content and some of our smartest minds at Breitbart. I will be doing a deep dive right after the show. I'm going to pop over there and talk to Matt Boyle about all things CR and a bunch of big events we've got coming up in DC. All that's going to be over there, so I recommend it. But thanks for that. I like when you guys share with me what you're up to in your personal life. All right, Dr. Jeannie Hurley, the Catholic conservative cat lady for Trump, emails me about skibbity nonsense. So this is about these Democrats who are using this Gen Alpha language. She says the Congresswoman, this is the purple-haired one, I keep forgetting her name, from Connecticut, trying to sound cool, looked and sounded like a moron, as pandering Democrats usually do. However, she was speaking Gen Alpha brain rot. This is the stuff that comes out of middle schoolers who are mostly watching Twitch, YouTube, and pretty much streaming-only content. It's creeping into high school, but still mostly in middle school as of now. A good source of this brain rot is Mr. Lindsay, so I'll have to check that out. Thanks for all you do. Have a great week. Yeah, this is the Missy's been keeping an eye on this stuff for me too. This is just the new language that is being incorporated into a lot of these joke meme videos from the Democrats. It comes from really young people, and I think that part of their concern, I think part of it's they're just trying to find something to latch onto culturally because they're just getting work. I mean, take a look at we got Lil Yachty now, so they got to cope with that. But I think a lot of what they're trying to do is their demographic problems are intensifying. Remember, the left doesn't have as many kids. Now, half of the Hispanics who they've been importing to try to replace Americans, yes, the great replacement, yes, that's real. And they've been importing them, and now the Hispanics like Trump. So now they may have imported people who are going to ultimately vote for Trump, or their progeny are going to vote for Trump and the MAGA movement. So that's a problem. And they lost the youth vote in 2024. So they got big problems. So they got to try to reach them somehow. There's just not enough people. Maxwell Frost is just not going to get through to enough of them. Just not true. All right. I will read from, let me see. So John Hall emails. He's the unofficial Marlow accountability agent. So I'd like to read from him because he does disagree. Seems like Republicans, the conservative commentators, have formed the new establishment. He's going to talk about the CR here. It's Weak Sauce Caucus. Massey and Paul, the only members that don't deserve to be primaried. I didn't say you should primary them, though. I think Massey's going to win a primary, so I don't know if it's productive to primary him. Trump's threatening him to make a point. Trump's drawing attention to how Massey's standing in Trump's way of Trump's agenda. So we vote for Trump. We love Trump. Trump can do no wrong. There's one Republican who says Trump is wrong, and you guys back him to the hilt. I don't quite get it, but let me continue. It's never going to stop spending with this group of unserious clowns. Who takes if the government shuts down? I guess besides the Weak Sauce Caucus, after all, Doge corruption that has been exposed. After failed promises to release files indicating more corruption, it's an easy sell that a shutdown until major reforms are agreed to should happen without any reservation. I would even go as far as say they should be bragging about shutting it down and using the leverage in order to force reforms and reopen. It's the ultimate Doge. So I just don't agree. He goes on. It's a good email as usual. And I always appreciate the disagreement, especially done respectfully, which you guys all do, I think, for the most part. Not always on Twitter. Twitter, sometimes the disagreement's not respectful. But you guys always, if you're emailing me, normally you're respectful. But what I will say is that you guys who are not inclined to support this CR are not supporting the stuff that Trump wants, because Trump doesn't want to not be able to govern. He didn't want to waste all this time on this. And this is one thing that there is a ticking clock element, because legislative sessions only last so long. It's only 2 years for the next congressional election. It's only 4 years until Trump will never be president again. He doesn't want to waste all this time. And I don't like CRs. I don't like omnibus bills. You guys have heard me talk about this for many years if you've been with me. But it feels like this one, we cannot stop Doge and the border enforcement now. We've got to get that stuff going now. So really, really big. And I think that is, I understand the disagreement. They're just not for it. And pretty much everyone else in Congress seems to agree. It just seems like the Twitterverse seems to be the ones who are most inclined to object. All right, let's see. What else we got going from the email? All right, here we go. This is about my tooth fairy woes. Okay, so I mentioned this on Monday's show, how I was a tooth fairy, and I was very concerned I was going to ruin my children's entire childhood, because I was forced to go up and extract the tooth from under Master Marlow's pillow in the middle of the night and then slip the now $10 bill. So I had on me, but that's pretty much what it goes now. That's the rate for the teeth. And I was thinking that what's going to happen is I'm going to wake him up. He's going to wake up Master Marlow Jr. Then they're going to have a big discussion. They're going to figure out what's going on. They're going to put together that Dada isn't just the Tooth Fairy, but Dada is also Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and all this fun stuff. And then Master Marlow, who's the eldest, who's 6, he's going to tell the 5-year-old, he's going to tell the 3-year-old, and the 1-year-old never gets to have any fun. And all of it is going to be ruined. And all the childhood majesty is going to be ruined because I have gigantic hands, as you guys may have noticed. It's just one of my burdens in life, and I'm going to ruin the entire childhood over this. And I pulled it off somehow, but it was with great anxiety. I lost sleep over it, literally. So Dr. James M. emailed me from Minnesota. Alex, love your show. And I've become a Fight Club member. As a dentist and mom of 3 boys, I laughed at your rendition of your Tooth Fairy routine. I have a couple of suggestions that may make your life easier. When one of my boys loses a tooth, I put the tooth in a cup of salt water to clean it for the Tooth Fairy and leave it on the kitchen table so I don't have to sneak around their bedroom in the night. Then I grab a bunch of change from my purse, throw it in the cup after disposing of the tooth. The kids think they're rich in the morning because of all the coins, and it has the additional math lesson benefit. This is truly brilliant. I mean, it's the kids love coins. They don't need the dollar bill. The coins are more fun. I have a famous quote from Master Marlow Jr. where I was frustrated with him, so I offered him $5. I offered him $5 to stop a certain behavior. And I only offered him the $5, mostly to amuse the other adults who were in the room who could see my frustration. I was thinking, well, what do I do to get this kid to behave? I said, I'll give you $5 if you do X, Y, or Z. And he looked at me dead in the eye and he said, how about 5 coins? And he really hung on the oin part. It was brilliant. It was hilarious. And I've always thought of that he would have taken 5 pennies over $5, and I was the sucker for offering the $5. So look, if we put the tooth to clean up in the cup, swap out the tooth with the coins, the kids would be happier. And if that was my routine to this point, I think it would work. But Master Marlow Jr. and Master Marlow are smart. So if I change it now, I don't know if I'm going to get away with it. And that will be the conundrum. I will pose this to Mrs. Dr. Marlow, who is more dainty than I am. And I is the usual Tooth Fairy. It was an exception on Monday because the baby was up and at him. So I had to deal with the older kids. So I'm going to have to check this out as a possibility. And I will report back. Dr. James M. Thank you very much. All right, we'll leave it there. That's fun. Fun note to end on. That'll be today's show. Thanks to Misty. Thanks to all of you for telling 10,000 friends and family members about the show. And we'll talk to you tomorrow.